Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most fascinating and unpredictable questions in the NFL right now. Who will be the Cleveland Browns quarterback by Christmas 2026? It sounds far away, but in today's NFL, 2 seasons might as well be a lifetime. Quarterback situations change fast, franchises pivot quickly, and nowhere is that more true than in Cleveland. The Browns have one of the most complex quarterback timelines in the league, with big contracts, injury concerns, young development projects, and the constant pressure to win now. So today we're taking an early, realistic, and honest look at all the possible paths that could lead to the Browns QB under center in late December of 2026. To understand where the Browns might be going, we first have to understand where they are now. Cleveland tied its future to Deshaun Watson with one of the biggest and most controversial contracts in NFL history. Fully guaranteed, massive cap implications, and enormous expectations. When the Browns made that move, the message was clear: this is our quarterback, and we're all in. But the reality since then has been complicated. Injuries, inconsistency, rust from time away from football, and an offense that hasn't fully unlocked his prime Houston Texans form have all created doubt, not just outside the organization, but quietly, internally as well. By Christmas 2026, Watson will be deep into his 30s with a lot of mileage on his body and a lot of scrutiny attached to his performance. The biggest question isn't just whether Watson can play at a high level, but whether he can stay healthy long enough to justify remaining the unquestioned starter. The Browns structured their roster to compete now with an elite defense, a strong offensive line, and weapons at the skill positions. That puts pressure on the quarterback position to deliver immediately. If Watson is playing like a top 10 quarterback in 2024 and 2025, this conversation becomes much simpler. In that scenario, the answer is straightforward. Deshaun Watson is still the Browns' quarterback by Christmas 2026. But the NFL rarely follows the simple script, especially in Cleveland. If Watson continues to struggle with injuries or inconsistency, the Browns will have no choice but to explore alternatives, even with the financial commitment they've made. That's where the situation gets really interesting. One of the most underrated aspects of the Browns' quarterback future is their willingness to be pragmatic. This front office has shown that it will make tough, sometimes unpopular decisions if it believes it improves the team's chances of winning. They didn't hesitate to move on from Baker Mayfield despite playoff success. They didn't hesitate to swing big on Watson despite enormous backlash. That tells us something important. Sunk cost alone will not stop them from making another major move if they believe the quarterback position is holding them back. So let's talk about internal options first. The Browns have invested in developing quarterbacks behind Watson, even if those players aren't household names. By 2026, one of those development players could emerge as a legitimate starter. It's not the most likely outcome, but it's not impossible either. Every year we see quarterbacks drafted in the mid to late rounds surprise people. If the Browns hit on one of those players and he shows real promise in preseason action or spot starts, the organization could gradually pivot. That said, Cleveland is not the type of team that wants to patiently rebuild around a young, unproven quarterback unless it absolutely has to. The roster is built to win right now. Myles Garrett will be in his prime, the defense will still be expensive and elite, and the front office will feel urgency. That urgency makes a veteran quarterback option much more likely if Watson falters. This brings us to the trade market. By 2026, there will almost certainly be established quarterbacks available via trade. There always are. The reasons vary: contract disputes, age, teams drafting replacements, or franchises blowing things up. Cleveland has shown it's willing to trade significant draft capital for a quarterback it believes can elevate the team. If Watson doesn't work out, the Browns could be one of the most aggressive teams in the league pursuing the next available star. Imagine a scenario where a proven veteran quarterback, maybe someone nearing the end of his first contract or someone displaced by a younger draft pick, becomes available. Cleveland would instantly be a top destination. Strong defense, solid offensive line, playoff-ready roster. For a veteran QB looking for one last run at a Super Bowl, the Browns would be very appealing. In that case, by Christmas 2026, we could be watching a completely different quarterback under center, someone brought in specifically to maximize the current championship window. Another realistic path is the NFL draft. While the Browns have traded away high picks in the past, draft capital has a way of replenishing itself over time. By 2026, Cleveland could find itself with an opportunity to move up in the draft if they truly believe a quarterback is their missing piece. The front office has already shown it will mortgage the future for the position. If there's a quarterback prospect they fall in love with in the 2025 or 2026 draft class, they won't hesitate to make a move. Drafting a quarterback would signal a major shift in philosophy. It would mean accepting short-term growing pains in exchange for long-term stability. But if Watson's play has declined significantly or his availability remains unreliable, the Browns might view that as the only sustainable path forward. In that scenario, Christmas 2026 could feature a young quarterback, maybe in his rookie or second season, being asked to manage games while leaning heavily on the defense. There's also the possibility of a bridge quarterback scenario. This is something we see more often than people realize. The Browns could draft a quarterback but start a veteran while the rookie develops, or they could move on from Watson and sign a short-term veteran while figuring out their long-term answer. It's not glamorous, but it's practical, and Cleveland has proven it values practicality over optics. Now let's talk about the wild cards, because the Browns seem to live in that space. One wild card is a complete resurgence from Watson. It's easy to forget just how good he was in Houston at his peak. Elite arm talent, mobility, playmaking under pressure. If he recaptures even 80% of that form and stays healthy, the Browns could be contenders every year. In that case, the narrative around Watson changes entirely. By Christmas 2026, we're no longer asking if he's the guy. We're talking about how many playoff wins he has. Another wild card is coaching. Coaching stability or instability can drastically alter quarterback plans. If the Browns experience coaching changes between now and 2026, a new coaching staff may want a different quarterback. New offensive systems come with new signal callers. If a new coach comes in with a vision that doesn't align with Watson's skill set, that could accelerate a change at the position. We also can't ignore injuries across the roster. If the Browns suffer major injuries and miss playoff windows in consecutive seasons, the front office may decide to reset the timeline entirely. That could mean moving on from expensive veterans and starting fresh with a younger quarterback. Christmas 2026 in that case could feel like the beginning of a new era rather than the continuation of the current one. So, after considering all these scenarios, what is the most realistic answer? As of right now, the most likely quarterback for the Browns by Christmas 2026 is still Deshaun Watson. The contract, the investment, and the belief that he can return to form all point in that direction. The Browns will exhaust every possible option to make it work with him before moving on. That means adjusting the offense, improving protection, tailoring play calling, and managing his workload to keep him healthy. But the margin for error is shrinking. If Watson does not show clear, sustained progress over the next 2 seasons, the Browns will be forced to act, and when they act, they will act decisively. In that alternate but very plausible scenario, the quarterback by Christmas 2026 could be a veteran acquired via trade, someone brought in to make one final Super Bowl push with a stacked roster. Less likely, but still on the table, is a young quarterback drafted and developed by Cleveland, potentially starting earlier than expected due to necessity. And hovering in the background of all of this is the ever-present chaos that seems to follow the Browns' quarterback history. Unexpected injuries, surprise performances, and shocking front office decisions have defined this franchise for decades. That's what makes this question so compelling. It's not just about talent, it's about timing, health, money, coaching, and pressure. By Christmas 2026, the Browns quarterback will represent the sum of all those factors. Whether it's Watson proving the doubters wrong, a veteran chasing a ring, or a young quarterback ushering in a new chapter, one thing is almost guaranteed: it won't be boring. If you enjoyed this deep dive and want more early looks at future NFL storylines, make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments who you think will be under center for Cleveland in 2026. Until next time, thanks for watching.